Alrighty, so today we are going to talk about the New York Redbulls in the Moving Forward series episode. And remember, in the beginning of the season, I said that this was potentially the best New York Redbulls team that has assembled since the 2018 Supporters Shield winning season, and that was also the year that they came oh so close of making to MLS Cup, falling to Atlanta United in the Eastern Conference Final. Yeah, so much for that because yeah, this season it felt like it was the same as previous Red Bull season, where this team is just still stuck in this mediocrity kind of cycle where they're just good enough to make it to the playoffs. And again, they still have this streak of the longest active streak of a team that made it to the playoff consecutively. But if you ask any Red Bulls fan, I don't think a lot of them really care about that streak anymore. And in some way, you could say that some Red Bulls fans feel like that streak just kind of continued the mediocrity that we've been seeing with this team. But in terms of this season, they finished with an 11, 10, and 13 record and finished with 43 points. So despite the fact that they actually lost more games this season compared to them winning, they still were able to make it to the playoffs, and they made it as an eighth seed, just to show you how this season, in terms of, as much as the East has been very top heavy, when you get it down to like near the last couple of spot in the playoffs, yeah, those are kind of the spots where a lot of teams are just simply bad. I mean, it just gets to a point where it's like these teams that made it to the playoffs just did it because they just did enough, and they weren't just as bad as what we see with some of these teams in the Eastern Conference. And it kind of makes sense because when you have a conference that is so top heavy up top, there's going to be some really bad team near the bottom of the table. But in terms of points total, I think I've already mentioned, but I'll mention again: 43 points that they finished this season. They only scored 36 goals. Goal scoring has always been a problem for the Red Bulls, and it continued this season. I think they even scored fewer goals than they did last year. They allowed 39 goals, which is also one of the things that we've seen before with Red Bulls team, where this is a team that is very good in terms of defensively, but it kind of doesn't matter when you can't score goals, and this is also why a lot of Red Bulls fans complain that this team is just simply boring with the way how they play, and I don't blame them for saying it because every Red Bulls game that I've watched this season play, it always feels like it's a bit of a slog fest, especially in the beginning where I could actually just not even pay attention to watching the Red Bulls play in the first 15 minutes, and I wouldn't have missed anything because it's just, it always tends to go through a bit of a slog fest in the first 15 minutes, and things are kind of always be a slow start for them coming out of the gate, and they finished with a goal differential of -3. So they finished eighth in the Eastern Conference, and because the playoffs is expanded to 9 teams, they made it to the playoffs once again. They even won their first playoff game in a while against Charlotte FC to make it into the first round, but unfortunately in the first round they got eliminated once again by FC Cincinnati, just like they did last season in the first round. Now, in terms of top goal scored, again, no surprise that when you have a team that struggled to score goals, there's not going to be a guy that is going to stand out as the top goal scored. And in this case, is actually a guy that is not even on this team anymore. He actually just moved to the Colorado Rapids. That is Omir Fernandez with 6 goals, followed by Frankie Amaya with 5 goals, Elias Manuel with 3 goals. Tom Barlow actually ends up in the top 5 list with 3 goals. And I've said this before, and I'll say it again, and this is no disrespect to Tom Barlow, but when Tom Barlow is one of your top 5 goal scorer in this team, you have serious issue in terms of goal scoring. And then followed by Lucchinias also scoring with 3 goals. Top assist leader, you got John Tolkien with 6 assists, followed by Elias Manuel with 5 assists. Frankie Ma also with 5 assists. Kyle Duncan with 4 assists, and then Omer Fernandez rounds up with also 4 assists to this team. Now, looking at the last 5 season, again, very similar. I mean, last season when they finished eighth with an 11, 10, and 13 record and finished with 43 points. Now, in 2020, they did finish the best out of the last 5 seasons, finishing all the way up to fourth with 15, 8, and 11 record and finished with 53 points. But as Red Bulls fan will tell you, that record was kind of deceiving because they were just so good on the road, but they suck at home. So what happened when they do get home field advantage? Oh yeah, that's right. They basically falter in the first rounds. So it's almost like if you're a team that is so good on the road, you kind of don't want to play at home in terms of your first round matchup, and that of course what it's the case. I mean, I remember that team. They only won 3 home games that season, which is quite crazy to see a team that still were able to make it to the playoffs despite the fact that they've only won 3 home games all season long. They finished in seventh place in 2021 with a 13-9-12 record with 48 points. In the COVID shortened season, they finished sixth with a 9-5-9 record with 32 points. And then in 2019, they also finished in sixth place with a 14-6-14 record and finished with 48 points. And notice all those 4 years that they finished to make it to the playoffs, only for them to bounce in the first round. A couple of times that they lost to the Philadelphia Union in the first round as a result of that. And that, again, this is a team that just keeps stuck in this mediocrity of the fact that they're still just good enough to make it to the playoffs. They're not like among the worst team in the Eastern Conference, but it doesn't really do much because once they get into the playoffs, once the first round happen, that's when they make their usual first round exit, and also they started to create the That's So Metro moment that is pretty much been the narrative of this team for their entire existence in MLS. Now, in terms of average attendance, 18,246, which is good for 21st. That attendance would be lower if Inter Miami didn't visit Red Bull Arena. I think that was the only game where the stadium was sold out at 27,000 plus, and that if it wasn't for that game, I think the total would have been below 18,000. Red Bulls have always had problem in terms of drawing fans. I mean, it's something that's almost like another narrative to talk about how Red Bulls fans just they're nobody wants to watch this team, and I do think that there are good reasons why that is the case. I mean, it's not because Red Bulls fans are not loyal to their team. It's mainly because it's basically the same product every single time, and when you see the same product every single time, you know that phrase, the definition of insanity. Yeah, it feels like it's the definition of insanity, and that it's no wonder why fans are starting to turn away. And also, not to mention, when you build a stadium in Harrison, New Jersey, it's not really the easiest place and the safest place to go there at nighttime. Now, in terms of MVP of this team, really, I mean, for me, I didn't think that there should be an MVP on this team, but of course, I have to pick one. So I'm gonna pick John Tolkien because he's the guy that kept the streak alive. And not to mention, he had a good season this year. I think he is probably the well, him between him and all these homegrown players that came out of the Red Bull Academy are a beacon of light of why the Red Bulls are still staying afloat of being a mediocre team. Disappointment. There was a lot of players I could have chose on the list. I could have gone with Luquinhas, the other DP that definitely did not perform. I could have easily gone with Tom Barlow again, although that would be just way too easy. I could have even gone with Corey Burke, who Corey Burke was supposed to be a guy that they hope that he can reminisce what he did with the Union, and do the same thing with the Red Bulls. That didn't happen. Whatsoever. I could even go with Elias Manuel, a guy that was supposed to be the number 9 of this team, and he didn't quite do so well. But I will say that the real number 9 of this team that I have to put in terms of being a disappointment, it's got to be Dante Van Zier. I think the thing that make Dante Van Zier tops that list in terms of the biggest disappointment this season for the Red Bulls is the underperformance that he has, and then of course the racial remark that we'll of course get to that cause him to be suspended for this team, and it's in some way kind of a miracle the fact that he of course did return to this team. I mean, I will say that he did at least do a good job in terms of admitting the mistake that he has, and he did everything to show remorse for his decision that he made. But yeah, still, that again, the season that he has had and the expectation that he's put nowhere near what the Red Bulls were hoping for. Now, in terms of young players to watch, again, because it's the Red Bulls, there's always a lot of young players that I could pick in terms of being on that list. But I'm gonna go with John Tolkien again. This is a guy that I think he's going to be sold off for a big amount of money and could be a future fullback for the U.S. men's national team. Also, shout out to Daniel Edelman too, who also had a good season for the Red Bulls. But yeah, by far, John Tolkien is a guy that is going to be a young player to watch, and I won't be surprised he's going to be sold off in the future and sold off to Europe, and will be a big part of the U.S. men's national team in the future too. So what went right for the New York Red Bulls? Well, the streak's still alive. I mean, it's 14th season now that the New York Red Bulls have not missed on the playoffs, and this season once again they sneak in to the playoffs as an eighth seed, which again, depending on who you ask, that's either a good or a bad thing. Mostly a bad thing because the Red Bulls fan will basically use this and say, well, the front office sees the streak so important that pretty much nothing has changed now that they once again make it to the playoffs. The defense has been solid. I mean, the defense has been the strength for the Red Bulls for the past couple of years, and it showed once again this year too. Oh, by the way, speaking of young player to watch, shout out to Andres Reyes too, a guy that was rock solid in the defense, and with the way that Andres Reyes has gone through so many injuries doing his early career, that was kind of one of the fear that I have with him suffering so many injury setback. When you're a guy that is very promising, when you suffer so many injury, that could really stagger your growth. But that's not been the case. I mean, Andres Reyes has been rocks solid at the back this season, and that yeah, the defense has been really solid so far. And then of course the homegrowns continue to carry this team. Guys like Omir Fernandez, Frankie Amaya, John Token. Well, Frankie Amaya isn't really a homegrown, but I'll just say he's kind of like one of those young players that kind of carry this. Guys like Cameron Harper, Daniel Edelman, and even Sean Nealis carrying this team to relevance, and that's kind of been the reason why this team has not been among the worst team in the Eastern Conference. I mean, while they make some very bad decision in terms of some of their transfer and some of the veteran player, it's still good enough to make it to the playoffs. It's very similar to what we see with FC Dallas a couple of years ago, where I talk about Dallas as a team that for a while has always been around the same situation where they have a very good academy and they produce some really good homegrown player that ends up into the starting 11, and they do good enough to carry this team into the playoffs. But unfortunately, as we have seen, just because homegrown player does good enough to carry you into the playoffs, it doesn't mean that they'll take the next step in terms of going deep into the playoffs, and that's kind of the case. I mean, the homegrowns can only carry the weight so much until the playoffs happen, and the legacy of failure of the New York Red Bulls continued, and the That's So Metro moment narrative continues too. So what went wrong with this team? Oh boy, a lot of things went wrong, especially the attack. The Dante Van Zier incident. I've already mentioned that before. None of their DP produce, and this has been a problem for the Red Bulls, not just this season, but really for maybe the past 4 or 5 seasons. They have not had a designated player, in my opinion, that has produced anywhere close to the rate that they had probably since Kaku was still on this team. Remember Kaku when he was with this team and he actually produced in the first season, and then let's not talk about what happened in the second or third season in a Red Bulls perspective, because that's when it kind of really gone down the toilet. But really, the guy that is probably I will say that has really been a consistent designated player that has produced week in and week out. I would say it's got to be BWP. I mean, it's hard to believe that in the year 2023, this team still have not replaced the president that BW he left this team, and that they again, it's not surprising the goal scoring has fall apart because of that. Injury, of course, hampered this team once again. Again, the Lewis Morgan injury. I mean, I gotta feel so bad for Lewis Morgan last season. I mean, if there is a guy that probably suffered one of the worst injury curse last season, I think that's him, with the way that he just came back from a long injury, and then next thing you know, he got injured again in the same game. I mean, I gotta feel so bad for this kid. He's very talented, obviously, and he's obviously a very important piece to this Red Bulls team, and that again, having him not being there, you can clearly see why the attack was not functioning at anywhere near the 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 expectation that this team should be. And then, of course, the other thing that went wrong is they're still stuck in the That's So Metro cycle. First round exit is still a common thing for this Red Bulls team. And this year, I mean, I would say that if you look at some of the top five That's So Metro moment, I wouldn't say this year is going to be along that list, because while, yes, they definitely suffered a bit of a heartbreaking loss in game two, where they had three chances to win in a PK shot to send the game to Cincinnati for game three. And obviously, I know there's going to be some people that's going to say, well, it doesn't matter even if they win that PK shot. They probably would have lost against Cincinnati. And knowing how teams that won game one actually went 8-0 for the wild card round, you might be right. They probably would have lost to Cincinnati, but still, again, that the fact that they had three times a chance to win the PK shot, and all 3 times they fail. That is a very That's So Metro kind of moment, but I wouldn't say it's going to be right up there into the top five. I know the Red Bulls have suffered that So Metro moment even more painful than what they did this season. And then moving forward for this Red Bulls team, obviously they need a new head coach. Of course, Troy Lesesne decided to not stick around, and now there's a rumor that he's actually going to be going to the Red Bulls rival. Well, at least one of the main rival. This used to be a rivalry, but I mean nowadays it kind of doesn't seem like it with NYCFC uh, arriving in the league, and that of course is DC United, I thought Troy was saying he did a good job, at least stabilize the ship. I mean, this team was sinking under the last couple of games under Gerhard Stuvert, and that while Troy Lesesne did definitely benefit the new head coach boost to get this team going, and he kind of maybe stagnated a little bit. I still think that he did a relative good job, and for a guy that have never coached in the MLS and only have level in the USL Championship, this kind of shows you that some head coach in the USL Championship, especially younger head coach, they could have potential to do well even in MLS. But again, Troy Saint decided to not stick around. He decided to move on to another team, and it'll be interesting to see who is going to be the new head coach for the Red Bulls. I mean, while all these other team around MLS are looking for a new head coach, and there's already rumors that is going to be the Red Bulls is one of those teams that I haven't heard a lot of news of who is going to potentially be their new head coach. This is always a team that likes to promote within, or likes to hire a guy that is part of the Red Bull system. And then now that I said that, actually, I think now I remember who, of course, is going to be the new head coach of this team. I think wasn't that guy called Sandro Schwartz was supposed to be the new head coach of this team. If I'm right, ignore what I've just said about how they need a new head coach, and instead now we'll basically just say how he's gonna work out, because he comes from the Red Bull system, and again that feels like it's a very Red Bull kind of hire, with the way that they love to hire head coaches in terms of within the Red Bulls franchise that the Red Bulls empire tends to have. And then speaking of the Red Bulls franchise, they also love to get some of their other players from other Red Bulls team. And in this case, it's Emil Forsberg, who came from RB Leipzig, that is joining the New York Red Bulls. I think this could be potentially one of the biggest signing, and could be a signing that finally they have a guy that could be just as good as what BWP was a couple of years. I mean, I'm not saying Emil Forsberg is a household name, but he is a guy that I think can definitely provide a spark to this team. And the same goes for Lewis Morgan when he does return. I mean, that will be a question, with Lewis Morgan, whether or not, with him just suffering so many injuries, is he going to be able to kind of have a comeback player of the year kind of campaign to carry this attack? Because both of those guys, I think, is going to have to carry this attack, especially after they lost Omer Fernandez this off season. And speaking of attack, they still need more attacking piece. Again, losing Omer Fernandez, that's going to be a tough pill to swallow. So they need to find a replacement for that. And in order to get themselves more attacking pieces, they might need to potentially open up some of their DP spot, and they might open a DP spot if the rumor is true that Luquinhas is being linked to go back to Brazil. And if you're the Red Bulls, I think it's best for them to just accept the deal. I mean, Luquinhas has definitely been a huge disappointment ever since he come from the Red Bulls, and I think when you have that situation, it's just better to cut ties with it. So yeah, we'll see whether or not if that is going to be opening up a DP spot, and that if they do open a DP spot, there's no doubt that they're going to spend it on an attack, and they're just hoping that they finally get it right, because so far when you look at some of the designated player spot that they have recently, it has been wrong, and more wrong in terms of how they got it, and in terms of the designated player spot. There you have it. That is pretty much it. Looking at the New York Red Bulls in this moving forward series. As always, let me know in the comments below what do you think of this video. And if you're a Red Bulls fan, what do you think went right, went wrong, and most importantly, moving forward, how is this team going to be looking heading into next season? But till then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you make sure to leave a like, smash the subscribe button, and yeah, I of course will see you guys next time.